Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. I'm Doug Brunke, founder and CEO of Global Chamber. I love speaking with Rutherford Pascal because he's such an expert on leadership, and we need more of that these days. You all are leaders, and you know that all around us tend to be challenges and sometimes a little bit of chaos, and it requires that we keep an even keel, keep both feet on the ground, and stay calm, and continue to grow and take advantage of the opportunities that are all right in front of us. So, Rutherford, thank you for your calmness and your knowledge and your expertise, and for sharing the expertise, particularly today. We're going to be talking about an aspect of leadership that's so important, and that is retention of people. You had mentioned the other day that some of the folks you've been speaking with and clients, particularly in the services area, are going through a little bit of some challenges around retaining great people. And so, as a leader, that requires to be able to retain great people, to behave certain ways and do certain things that are really important. So, thank you for agreeing to speak on that topic. Thank you for this ongoing conversation. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started?
Yeah, I think thank you, Doug, for the great introduction. So retention is this thing that it's a very interesting thing. So here's what I'll say to you. The thing I talk to people about with retention is people we measure everything. We measure everything. Um, but there's no line item on the P&L for attrition as there's no item. They don't measure that. There's no cost associated with that they measure on a regular basis. They measure, they might say we have three openings or five people left or things like that, but they don't really put a financial cost to that. And the cost, conservatively, you hear of costs being between three and five times the salary of the person that's leaving. Now, if you think about that, if you lose three people in a year, and if it's three to five times, you've lost between 750 to 1.5 million dollars right off just because of losing an individual. Now, and if it's a high potential or it's a high performing individual, that number is towards the higher end of 1.5 and greater. So it's a big topic, but we don't pay enough attention to it because we don't measure it. We don't measure it, even try to measure it in on a regular basis in any business that I'm aware of.
Rutherford is a deep expert on leadership, and a lot of it has come from his learning from John Maxwell. And
Mhm.
Rutherford got me starting to read his books. I've read about a dozen, and Rutherford's reaction was, well, you've got about 70 or so left. But I will say that first 12 that I've read over the last few months have been really inspiring for me. And then, in terms of really understanding the concepts of leadership, which for whatever reason I've just kind of been winging it for too long. One other book that I'm just wrapping up again for my second reading is Good to Great. And so the timing of this conversation, I think, is really great because, and no pun intended, but but one of the things in Good to Great, as you'll remember, I think we probably all read it, is that number one is people. The as a, the whole story at the beginning, right, is certainly a lot of good and bad stories of leaders. And then he talks about what do you do as a leader? And the first thing is don't worry about like solving the problems. Get the right people on the bus. And so really retention is the next step, right? The first step is, get the right people. The next step is retain those right people. I didn't get to that part of the book yet, but I'll bet, it's a key part, and it's certainly weaved in, right? The
Yeah.
kind of things that John Maxwell talks about in his books about how to treat the best people goes right to the heart of retention, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And so the Jim Collins, what he also talks about the bus is you have to get the right people on the bus, but then you have to get them in the right seats on
Yeah.
the bus. And that's a situation that takes great leadership too, because some people could be underperforming in a present role because they're in the wrong role. And if you talk to them, listen to them, understand, and put them in the right role or put them with the right person, they could flourish. I will tell you a personal story that happened with me. I was I had an administrative, I can't talk, assistant that um we one of my previous one had left, and we were looking for another one. So there was somebody else that needed a position. She was an administrative assistant, and I was told that she had the potential, to be pretty good. That's what I was told. They thought she was underperforming, and so her and I started working together, and it was an unbelievable match of people like me and her. We connected so well. She became the most sought after person in our company, in our division, by far. The most liked. Her ratings were spectacular, and it was simply because she had the same job, but she was with a leader that didn't see the value she brought and didn't push her in ways that she wanted to be pushed. And because of that, she flourished. I mean, and was never happier, right? During the pandemic, I couldn't get her to stop working. You know, you know, you're on the computer at 6, you're off at 8. What are you doing? Right? And, and that's just how much she enjoyed what she was doing. And that's a personal thing for me, but it's getting that person not only on the bus in the right seat with the right person. That's a big deal too, because there could be a mismatch of personalities and leadership styles and the things like that really can benefit the person and the organization. And this person significantly benefited the organization.
I'm Doug Brunke, and I'm speaking with Rutherford Pascal, who's a member of Global Chamber based in the Phoenix, Arizona chapter. He's on our advisory board in the Global Chamber Phoenix chapter. The program you're listening to is the Globinar that's called Leadership in a Time of Epic Global Opportunities. And today we're talking about retention.
Hmm.
Rutherford, that story you just told, you had a role in that.
Hmm.
How would you describe your part of that process to get that success?
So I always tell people that leadership is really about listening carefully. I call it aggressive listening. People call it active listening. I don't think active is good enough. I think when you're talking to people and dealing with people and you're with them, you need to be, I mean, to me, in my terminology, aggressively listening to what they say and really importantly, what they don't say. Because there might be meanings, there might be things they're leaving out that's really important. And then you get to ask a question. So Doug, this gets back to your John Maxwell. one of his books. I'm not sure it's one of the 12 you read yet. Talks about great leaders ask great questions. And so you have to, if you aggressively listen, you'll figure out, maybe this person gets energized by this, right? This person gets energized by that. And there were certain things that I was doing that she wanted to do, so I gave her more responsibility in that. And it, I took it took off my plate. It was something I didn't mind doing at all, but she got so energized by doing it that it made all the difference for her. And it was just talking to her and asking, really on a regular basis, what do you need? What's holding you back? Things like that. How can I help you grow? Just really not not these difficult questions, just really talking to her about this, and then letting her try it and seeing the results. When everything came up aces, you just said, okay, I'm going to continue this. She gets happier and happier, and that's what happened. So my part, Doug, to your question is really just about asking, continue to talk, finding out as much as I can about her, what drives her, what makes her happy, what doesn't make her happy, so I can make good decisions about what kind of work I should have her do, and what types of projects should I have her lead or have her be just part of the of the uh, of the audience or the participation.
That is I think, one of his better books. It is devoted to just asking good questions,
Yeah.
and I highly recommend that one. I've read that one twice actually, because that's a particular area that I'm working on right now. So thank you for bringing that up. I'd also like to bring up for our audience, if you'd like to ask a question,
Mm.
um, please raise your hand. And then toward the end, we'll also be able to just open up the floor for questions. We will wrap up by the top of the hour. So we have about 40 minutes. So we try to wrap up at 55. So you've got a little bit of a break between this and whatever you have coming up next. Let's continue to ask Rutherford some questions. I know these are great questions because he suggested I ask him these. So I
These
didn't
are
have,
these are just thought starters for me.
I didn't even have to work on that. That it's fantastic, but they're perfect. Could you talk a little bit about retention strategies today versus the past? There are young people. Younger people have different needs and requirements. The technology is coming into a play back. Not to date myself, but certainly maybe my father's era, people stayed with one company. Now people are living for a lot longer, and the transition between companies and lots of different roles that people have, is accelerating. So management and leadership has changed dramatically over the decades, and even seems to be changing even year by year, especially with AI and other issues, globalization that are happening. Could you talk a little bit about how we stay current and what are some of the essential things that are current that we should know about?
Yeah, well, so the terminology I'll think about from a leadership perspective is like adaptive leadership, because everything you just said, Doug, is really about how things have changed. And probably the thing that people most talk about is, you have remote versus people that are live, right? And that's a big deal. And now, and if you think about this community, and Chet just talked about he's going to be in what, 4 different countries in 1 month, right? In and Chet, do you have employees in all those countries?
I have stepsons. who could become employees.
Oh, okay. All right. So do you have workers in those areas?
Not yet.
Okay.
And one of my goals is I'm in the environment, health, and safety business, and we're trying to identify foreign businesses who are looking to establish a presence here in the United States in order to get around the tariffs. And
Mm-hmm.
you just don't open shop in the United States and start manufacturing. So you got all the EPA and OSHA regulations you have to comply with. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we come in, is we help them navigate through all that maze, help them get the permits, help them set up all the programs and so forth. This trip is both a pleasure trip and a business trip. So I'm hoping to meet potential businesses or network with organizations like the Global Chambers to help us identify businesses who are interested in coming here. So it's a combination pleasure trip and business trip.
Okay, that's fantastic. Congratulations on that. You get to see some family, stepsons, and you get to see you get potentially grow the business, which is awesome.
Yes.
If you had those employees in those areas, every all those are different, and how you think about keeping those are different, right? And it gets back to the questions that you're asking. Um, you're asking each employee, which is important. So what I'll say, Doug, for your question is the overarching um, things about retention stay the same. The core of retention stays the same. Some of the tactics might differ, but it's really about, do you have a plan for the employee? Does the employee feel wanted and needed? Does the employee uh, see themselves growing in the organization? Are you listening to the employee? So some of those things, they don't change if you're Gen X, baby boomer. Those are say some of the things that are important now with being able to be flexible with childcare, and you have things that you're remote. That's that's a unique thing, and you have to work harder if you're remote. If you're a leader and you're trying to retain people, you have to be more intentional about the questions you ask, and you have to set time aside to really talk to these individuals about themselves, because you don't have the I forgot his name. Tony Shea, I think, is the owner of started Zappos, and he talked about collisions in offices. When somebody ran into somebody, he would call it a collision, and for the it was a way for him thinking about growing culture. Well, culture now is, if you're remote, you have to be intentional about how you build that. So, and how you grow that, and how you keep your employees, motivated and wanted. So you have to take one or two extra steps in that situation. So I think what's outdated is a hierarchical, right, way of thinking. That's almost, it's not gone, but it's difficult to keep people because they have choices now, many choices. And that kind of choice, if you run a hierarchical company, or that you're that kind of leader, and you tell instead of ask, if you're not going to be as successful, right, in this day and time, um, because somebody can go get another job, for either remote or live, and now you're missing probably one of your best people. Because what's interesting about retention is the great people leave. So if you think about, if you're I'm just going to say, if you're not one of the best employees in the organization, you're probably going to stay. Most of those types of people don't leave often. mainly because of some opportunities that they won't have. The great people, their phones ringing, their LinkedIn's going off all the time. People are always asking them to leave. So they have greater opportunities to leave because they're better or greater employees. So that it's really incumbent upon the leader to do every single thing they can to keep those great employees. So that's and having them and listening to them is still the most important thing, I think, of all the things that I've talked about.
You talk about being intentional and having to work harder for employees that are remote. Could you talk a little bit about how you suggest you prepare as a leader for a meeting like that? How do
Oh,
you think about it? How do you keep notes on it between times that you haven't met, and then as you prepare to have the conversation, are there particular ways that you go about that you would like to share?
so if you're having regular one-on-one meetings with your top people, regular one-on-one meetings, you're, for me, it was I always wanted to spend the beginning part of meetings, and that's the intentional or structured, whatever, however the word you want to use, part of the meetings, because there's always a, small talk type of thing at the beginning. But then I always wanted to anchor on something that they're working on, either something they're going to get better at, or a project or something, and talk to them about that, how they were doing, if it was benefit them, if they wanted more of this, if they saw themselves growing, continue asking them what they need. So the intentionality around the questions and spending a time on them. So that's the thing, Doug, is because we are so focused on growing the business and selling more, doing more, getting, having more billable hours, depending on the service you're in, we tend to focus our one-on-ones on that and not on the person that's doing that. So the intentionality is really around, for me, it's starting with it, then I'll go to the business. But you could do the opposite way. As long as you get to talking to them about their development, how they're growing, what they need, that's what's important. It's and it's I the reason I'll tell you I would always advise to start with it is because if you wait till the end, you'll give it 3 to 5 minutes, and the high potential employee will feel cheated. We spend 95% of the time talking about this business and 5% of the time talking about me. And this was supposed to be a developmental talk. That's why I front loaded and make sure I get conversations in there. And even because a lot of times people will want to tell you something about their growth or what they want, and they'll just never get a chance to because the leader doesn't let them or allow them to talk because it's everything is about the business.
Really great, great thoughts on that. Get the biggest rocks into the barrel before you add the sand in the water. Kind of a
One of my favorite analogies, Doug, by the way. I do that all. That's one of my rocks, pebbles, stones. Yeah, yeah, I love it. Sand. Yeah.
yeah. How do you manage through that? Beyond that particular meeting, how do you manage it with other employees, and particularly the potential for resentment, where you might treat the best employees in ways that others might not appreciate or resent even.
So you're never showing favoritism, right? What you're trying to, so here's the thing. As a leader, you should be adding value to everybody in your organization, right? Everybody. So So the one thing that's important to understand is that everybody has this, what I call a zone of genius. Everybody is great at something. And you trying to get them to be greater, to be happier, to be, that was like what the conversation I talked to you about with my admin. That, I mean, it was just figuring out what she was great at and continue to give her that. So if you're adding value to every employee, there's a significantly reduced chance of resentment because they're probably getting what they want, right? The high potential you're giving stretch assignments to, you might be giving them more quote unquote important assignments, quote unquote. Um, but the other employees aren't resenting because they're getting things to grow themselves. Everyone grows at different speeds, different times. It's not equal about the level of growth or ability, will, and skill of the employee. Your job as a leader is to help everybody grow, because if everybody grows, the organization is going to grow naturally. If everybody gets better, you're going to sell more. You're going to produce more. Everything's going to go up and to the right. And so you can't. The worst thing you can do is have favorites, right? I have 4 kids, and I have a favorite, but I won't tell. I'm kidding. I don't. You don't. I don't really. I can't. I do. We do not have favorites. We don't have favorites. But here's the thing about the 4 kids. They have 4 completely different skill sets, 4 completely different things that they're great at, and you're trying to feed, them and talk to them about their greatness. And Doug, one of them in commercial real estate. One of them is spectacular at the behind the scenes and getting everything in place and be just unbelievable at that. And the joy my daughter has in getting things done and doing it's crazy. My wife says to me, I've never seen her happier. And she's like, she's doing this stuff that by the way, I don't want to do it. My wife doesn't want to do it, but she loves it, right? So so there's no resentment of the 4 because we're feeding them what they need and what they want because of their special skills, talents. I call it genius.
Got it. Oh, that's great. How to deliver tough love to all of those folks, the folks that are the highest performers and the folks that have their own greatness.
Yeah. How do you deliver that? Nobody gets better if you don't tell them the truth. So you have to tell the truth to them. So when I mean the truth, I don't think about it as attacking them or anything else, but you have to tell them the areas that they are deficient, they need to grow, they need to focus on to get where you want to go. So part of the conversation, Doug, is to have these previous conversations is what do you want in the next 5 years? Or what are you looking to be? What's your aspirations? Even, by the way, so somebody who does not want to grow in the organization, meaning grow with roles, right? You're still having those conversations because everybody has to grow. And the thing I want to, the terminology to consider is a superstar in their role. That's what you're looking for. You're looking to have everybody be a superstar in their role. And if in fact they want to do other things, then we'll give them opportunities to grow, learn, so they could succeed and become superstars another role, either that's um, tangential or it's it's a different role that with more responsibilities. But you have to tell people what they're great at, what they're good at, and what they're not as good at. And if that third one that they're not as good at, if it's critical to the role, if it's critical to them growing to the next level, it's you have to talk about it, and you talk about it in a very positive way. When I will tell you, when I was a first line leader, and we called on physicians. I'd go into a doctor's office, and my rep would have a conversation with the doctor and staff, and then we would review the call after the meeting. So, as you might imagine, there were times when the call was not good. Let's just say it wasn't good. I would spend a lot of time looking out the window of the car, thinking how I was going to structure the conversation to be productive so they could move forward. Because the goal is not to shut that person down and tell them that was terrible. The goal is to say this is how you could get better, this is how you could grow, right? But here's what you missed. And so you tell them, but you tell them in a way or manner that's productive. You don't want people to be gun shy because you've told them, hey, you can't do this, you don't do it. It might work in the moment because of a fear, and they might do it pretty good or okay. But when you're not with them, they're not going to do it. So you have to build something that's sustainable, that they actually learn and they change behaviors and they grow from that situation. And then you got to see it, then you got to go back and check it again, and and then compliment them, by the way, compliment them on any growth that happens, no matter how small. Say, hey, you're getting better, you're progressing. Still got a way to go. We have more work to do, but I like the direction you're going with. So that positive talk, that positive reinforcement will help them continue to grow. You just can't put people down um, on a regular basis, because eventually, especially if they're a high performer, they will leave.
I, I'd like to open up the floor for questions, but so feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead. But I have one more question before I do that, and that's, when you and I chatted yesterday, you particularly pointed out service companies,
Yes.
lawyers and accountants, and those. Are there other issues involved with leading at those in those situations, or other things that make that particularly challenging right now?
No, it's not. It's not a precedent. It's always been that way, right? So the thing is, and it's what I kind of mentioned before, is when everybody is treated like a commodity, right? And the only thing that they're there for is to make the firm, the company money, and the individual, and there's no, um, the leadership's not pouring into the individual as an individual. And it happens mostly at these service firms. It happens everywhere, but it happens mostly at this. So there's nothing that's different except they are what's the word? They are looked upon, judged by their output. And for the law firms, it's billable hours. So everything is billable hours. So if that's the number one thing, then everyone is just going to try to get, to do that better. But you're not finding out about the person. And that's the issue.
Oh, are you still there? I might have muted the wrong person.
Sen sor biraz evvelce.
I think I think that's coming in from Turkey. Hey, Mohammed, we can hear you, but we've muted you. Go ahead, Rutherford.
I know. So that was it. I see a hand up there.
Yep, it's
Okay.
Chet. Hey, go ahead, Chet. Please let us know what your question is. What do you think so far, and what's your question?
Oh, I think this session's been going great. The question I have is, I'm a government contractor, and we hire people, based on contracts that we win. And recently, we had a NASA contract that expired. But instead of a follow-on contract, they incorporate our contract into a NASA-wide contract, and which we did not win. So instead of each region with their separate contracts for environmental services, they made it a national and NASA-wide contract. So, I guess my question is, if you have employees that their contract is going to expire and there's no position for them within the organization, so how do you plan for it? How do you prepare them for it? Uh, in many cases, their positions are SCA positions, so I think the executive order under Obama is no longer in effect, so that you're not required to offer those positions. But if you are the contractor that wins this contract, then the first place you're going to go to is the incumbent employees. So the chances of them getting rehired for the same positions, is fairly high. But my question, once again, is, how do you prepare these employees? I'm in the contract right now that expires next year. The solicitation has come out. We submitted a proposal, so we're waiting to see if we got re-awarded the final on contract. So how do you prepare these employees for the potential that we don't win the follow-on contract, and the potential that they may not be hired by the new employer?
Yeah. So this has actually happened to me, right?
Okay.
So not in that sense, not in a government sense, but so the thing I told everybody is I need you to be great at something, right? So
Mhm.
and the terminology I had, there's no downside to being great. So there's no downside to being great. So I would tell them, Chet, that to focus and grow themselves so people they will be rehired, right? Yeah, at another company, or they're so good at the job now that they'll pick them versus the inline. Now, I know that's difficult, but it happens. I've seen it happen
Mhm.
before, but that's if you're so great at what you do. Um, so that's what I would focus them on. But the other thing is, I'm sure they know that there's that opportunity that they might not get rehired, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so the truth, I mean, because of what they are, what they do, they know that there's a chance. But I would focus on them being so good that it would it's not an automatic, we're gonna hire somebody else.
Mhm.
And so that's the first option. The second option is they're so good that they're going to get hired either at another contract or because they're so good. You don't get if you're great, you're going to be found,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to be employed. So to me it's just about being great. And I say something because it really is something. You can do the same job and one person's spectacular at analytics, right? They focus on it. and now you want to double down on the analytics and figure out how you can maneuver, um, how you can use that to your greatest strengths to not only grow in the position, but when you are in an interview and you're talking about, why we should hire you, you give an example that the interviewer says, wow,
Hmm.
right? And that's what I'm talking about with being great. So that's to me, that's the focus because that's going to get you more contracts, right? Because of the output, and it's going to get them employed. So it's
Yeah.
just about them honing their skills, being great so they can get rehired.
Yeah, in the government contracting world, now that we're not required to offer or give first right of refusal to the incoming employees, uh, the first thing that a contractor like me do when we win the contract and there are incumbent employees, the first people we go to are not the employees, is the government client. Of these employees, which ones do you want back?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because and if you're great, guess what? They'll say, yeah, he or she's way better than the person I
Yeah.
had before, right? And that's the focus. There's no downside to being great. There just isn't any downside to being great at what you do. That's why I mentioned before being a superstar in your role. If you get that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. And by the way, if you're doing what you love, your your mental state during this process is also going to be good because you're still doing really, really things that drive you or help
Mhm.
you grow. So either one's good.
Yeah, what's funny is this contract that we're waiting for recompete. Uh, the alternate site lead, when I was talking to her, and she goes, "Yeah, we've been through this so many times." The last employer said, "Yeah, don't worry, we're the incumbent, and there's no way we're gonna lose this contract." So let's just say she has a very open mind. So she's ready for all okay, eventualities. But some of the other employees are not of that mindset. So we want to make sure that either we can take care of them internally, or that and what we've done in the past is if we've lost a contract, we will reach out to the new contractor and say, hey, here are the people that are working on this contract. Here's their contact and so forth. So make it easier for them to reach out to them.
That's awesome. That's great leadership right there. It tells you care about your people. You're trying to get them hired back on, and I guarantee you they appreciate that.
Yeah.
They feel it, they see it. So that's great.
Well, I guess the thing I measure myself is I've got, I think, four of my employees working, who used to work for me out of our Indiana, God, Indianapolis office. Come
Okay.
on. And those four are now government employees and are now our customers. So,
Oh, that's great. That says a lot. That says a
yeah.
lot.
Well, so I said, okay, well, I'm glad they left on good terms.
Yeah. You've done good work. They've come back to you. So that's
Yeah.
good. That's awesome.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Uh, Good lesson to be transparent and treat people with respect and do the right thing. That's awesome. Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments about what you're hearing today? See some really amazing people in the audience.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm just curious, with all this transition, are you seeing that the culture is more supportive of employees, and there's a focus on retaining those good employees?
It's office by office, it's company by company. It's not, is it getting better? I don't think so. I mean, I don't
Yes.
feel it. I don't see it. I think certain industries have gotten better, but so let me say it to you this way. The people that are mediocre to bad leaders think they're great leaders,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
True. It's
so,
true.
so they don't, they're not going to change. So here's the situation, right? You have somebody that has a 30% attrition rate, 30%, but they think it's Gen Xers or it's the
Yeah.
economy or it's everything is external to what they do. They hold no accountability for playing a part in the 30% attrition rate. It's the back in my day type of mentality. And so if you have those leaders, and there's still a lot of those leaders around,
Mm.
it's not going to change. They it's like it's the leaders that say to their people, you're replaceable, right? Those leaders are those leaders are difficult to work with, um, and because they don't want to change, because they've seen what they think it works, what I do works, partly because they have a modicum of success, so they think about it as we're successful, right? I was one of well, actually the last big pharmaceutical company I was with. We had a meeting and they were talking about this product, and they said, "Hey, this is a $5 billion product. We've been really successful." And I made a statement that people did not like. And I said, the product is spectacular. So I think we succeeded despite ourselves, not because of ourselves, right? So that could have been a $7 or $8 billion product if we were
Mm.
greater stewards of the product, leaders. And after the initial shock of me saying that to them, they thought about it and they went, you know, you're, there was some bad leadership decisions that could benefited, our customers in a much better way, and that's true. So the small success blinds these bad leaders, right? That they don't have to change, and they're like, so they think about, hey, we were, grew by 4% last year. Now the rest of the industry grew by 10, but they still, so they don't see that. They see their growth by 4 or 3, and they think it's good. And they don't, so they get lulled in this false sense of success because of those things, and they don't measure themselves. Um, they don't push themselves and measure themselves after those people. They just think they're either, if a company's growing, it's either luck, or some other excuse that they're making, and not taking any ownership of being not matching or beating them. Yeah, those so long-winded way to say, that it still goes on. It's gotten better in certain areas, but it's still happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. I worked in an environment where we were we had a director overseeing 7 subject matter experts, and not one, I mean, he lost all 7 of us. And you're thinking, at what point? But to your point, the leadership with the epic opportunities,
Yeah,
that's what was available.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You think it would hit somebody. And why did all 7 of these people? Why did all what did? By the way, was it in a short, finite amount of time, like a year, 2 years?
Yes, over maybe a 2-year period, probably less than 2 years.
I mean, you should be slapped in the face. I mean, not physically, but you should be going, "Oh my God, there's something going on. I gotta, figure out what that is." But those situations, they don't do that. They find an excuse that it's not them. It can't be them.
But it hurt. Well, we serve the manufacturing community, and that hurts them.
Yes.
that hurts. We're looking at, hey, our manufacturers need this expertise.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of when somebody leaves, there's an institutional knowledge, there's institutional reputation, there's a lack of ability. It's bad for the customer. So I will tell you, we lost our number one salesperson. This person, she was one, and number two was way below. Right? So she left. We never replaced her. We replaced her, but her output, nobody even came close. So instead of, I was talking before about 3 to 5 times somebody's salary.
Mm-hmm.
For her, it was probably 10 to 12 times because we never in 7 years matched what she did early on. So it was very interesting, but it's true. It happens a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Chet, Elizabeth is in Los Angeles, and if you aren't able to connect here, we're happy to connect. Thank you for your message.
Elizabeth, is that the Port of Los Angeles?
Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, yes.
I recognize
Well, it wasn't those organizations, but yeah, but I'm near we're in the Port of LA and Port of Long Beach.
That's awesome. So you close to Doug?
Yeah, now, yes, since he relocated to West LA, yes.
For
It's
sure.
been a pleasure. He's a wonderful resource.
Has he taken you to Japanese food yet?
No, not yet.
It's coming up. We have an event September 3rd in LA, actually in Torrance. If you've been in, West LA and the Torrance area, there's a lot of Japanese.
Yes.
I just had unagi last Tuesday with Brian Swords and Sal Azani, who is hosting us on September 3rd. It's a conversation about India, but it'll be in the Japan area. So hopefully, Elizabeth, you can attend. And Elizabeth does serve on our advisory board in LA. Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you.
We're at the end of the hour, and I'd like to just make a quick comment and then turn it over to you, Rutherford, to wrap up. But that conversation you just had with Elizabeth reminded me of, again, going back to Good to Great, of their analysis of level 5 leaders. That, in fact, this was the last sentence that I listened to last night was the having charisma as a leader is a good and bad. And he talked about mostly bad. Most of the level 5 leaders he spoke with were very humble, were very self-effacing, very focused in on the company, not themselves. And most of the bad examples of people that he gives, like Hacksaw Reynolds, that was a football player, but Hacksaw.
Al Dunlap. Hacksaw
Al Dunlap. That's right.
Yeah.
Hacksaw Reynolds was a football player.
Yes, he was.
So Al Dunlap was, like totally what you just described, right?
Yeah.
Totally oblivious to his horrificness.
Yeah.
And so there's not much we can do to change that. But we as leaders, I think, need to recognize, based on that message to me, was if you do have some charisma, that you need to be understanding of what that impact is, plus and minus. So anyway, how would you like to wrap up? This has been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate it. For all of you, definitely have Rutherford on your speed dial. Connect up with him in LinkedIn. His large pharma background and now his work that he does in a variety of size companies is a universal leadership benefit that you can take advantage of, and you might either yourself or others. Rutherford, thank you so much for your time today. How would you like to wrap up?
Oh no, just listen. Thank you, and I appreciate the conversations and the questions. And the thing I want to end with is this. This thing, I want people to go back to like the first statement I talked about with listening. the key to leadership is listening as much as they can to their employees and really understand the people that work with them and for them. I have this 3-letter thing that I talk about all the time is know your people. If you know your people really, really well, you will be able to figure out what's the best thing for them, give them that, and they will. I've heard them, run through a wall for you, that kind of thing. That they'll follow you wherever you go, and yeah, that kind of thing. So it's because you know them and you think about them. And Doug, when you talked about charismatic leaders, they'll get people in the door, but they won't like treat them like gold when they get in there, right? And because they don't get treated like gold, they're not great. They're not great. So if you want to have this, retention, treat people the way they want to be treated. And that's the only way you do that is by knowing who they are and then satisfying that whatever that is. So that's what I would end with.
Brilliant. Thank you. The great conversation. This is a monthly call that we do on leadership, and thank you, Rutherford. For today, the rest of today, we have in 2 hours the Globinar on global real estate. We do a weekly program, and I did speak with the leaders of that, Jim Huang and Ellen Shu, last night. They've got a very special program planned today and ongoing. Stay tuned because there's some big announcements coming up by September 1st. If you're at all involved with economic development or real estate or business on the commercial side that involves real estate, or you're an investor in real estate on the global scale, definitely check that out. That's every week. This next one is in 2 hours. And then we have a Global Chamber San Francisco meetup in 4 hours. So we'll be entering the Silicon Valley and talking to a variety of people, including Shupto Mahub, who is one of our Global Chamber Advisory Board leaders in the region, talking about M&A and private equity and some of the really exciting things that are going on right now. There's some really positive developments on that side of things, particularly on international investment in the United States. So thanks everybody for taking the time today. Have a great rest of your day. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, Rutherford.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Mohammed, for joining. I know you got unmuted there, and I wanted to call on you, particularly around cross-cultural leadership, thinking about Turkey and Iraq versus, kind of our normal standard, which some of us have experienced. So that certainly, Rutherford, you've touched on cross-cultural issues in the past, and I'm sure we'll get to that in the future again as well. Thanks, everybody.